Have you ever wondered what makes the perfect orange? You know, that perfect balance of sweet and tart with that deep, vibrant color? Well, what if I told you the secret isn't more sunshine or some fancy fertilizer, but actually less water? Today, we're going to dive into some amazing science that shows how a little bit of stress can make one of our favorite fruits even better.
I know, it sounds totally backwards, right? How could giving a plant less of something it needs to survive actually improve the final product? It goes against, well, pretty much everything we assume about growing things. But stick with me, because the answer is seriously fascinating.
All right, so to really get why a little stress could be a good thing, you first have to understand the huge challenge that citrus farmers are up against.
So here's the core of the problem. Citrus trees are just incredibly thirsty. They need a ton of water to grow properly. But here's the twist. A lot of the world's best orange groves are in semi-arid places where water is becoming more and more scarce. So you've got this super thirsty plant in a place with not a lot of water. It's a real puzzle.
It turns out the solution isn't about finding more water. Instead, scientists looked to nature itself and found something pretty paradoxical. They discovered it's all about understanding how these trees react when things get a little tough.
Check this out. Nature basically has two different on switches to tell a citrus tree, hey, it's time to make some flowers, which, eventually become oranges. In places with cooler winters, that chill is the signal. Simple enough. But in hotter tropical areas, the tree uses a completely different cue, a period of drought. That's right, a lack of water is a natural trigger for the tree to reproduce. This tells us that stress for a citrus tree isn't just a bad thing to get through, it's actually a vital message from its environment.
So this natural paradox got scientists thinking. If a little drought is a natural signal for the tree, could we maybe harness that? Could we create smarter ways to water our crops by using stress strategically?
And that's exactly what they did. They set up this huge 5-season-long experiment in an orange orchard. They had one group of trees, the control group, that got all the water they could ever want. And then they had other groups where they tested different water-saving strategies, intentionally applying a little bit of stress to see what would happen.
Okay, so they tested 3 main techniques. Now the names are a bit of a mouthful, I know, but the ideas behind them are really clever. The first one, SSDI, is pretty straightforward. But the next two, RDI and PRD, that's where things get really creative. Let's break those down. First, you've got regulated deficit irrigation, or RDI. The best way to think about this is like a really specific times diet for the tree. The scientists knew that there are certain times in the fruit's growth when it doesn't need as much water. So during those less critical phases, they cut the water way back. But during the most important growth spurts, they gave it all the water it needed. It's all about perfect timing.
Now this next one, partial root zone drying, or PRD, is, I think, just genius. You're basically tricking the tree. What you do is you only water one side of the tree's roots. The roots on the dry side start to freak out a little and send chemical signals up to the leaves that basically scream, hey, it's a drought, conserve water. But here's the brilliant part. Because the other side of the roots is getting plenty of water, the tree stays perfectly healthy and doesn't get dehydrated. Then, after a while, you just switch which side you're watering. It's an amazing way to get the tree to save water without actually putting it in any danger. So, after 5 years of these carefully timed water diets and tricking the trees, what happened? What were the results? Okay, this is where the story gets really good.
First off, let's talk water savings. The basic sustained deficit method saved a pretty respectable 25% of the water compared to the control group. That's a solid start, but it gets much better.
Next up, that timed diet method, RDI, did even better. It saved a full third of the irrigation water, so now we're at a 33% savings. Not bad at all.
And then there's the PRD method, the one that tricks the tree. This one achieved a staggering 49% reduction in water use. That's almost half the water, just gone, saved. Absolutely incredible. Now here it is. This is the most important part. Even though they used up to half as much water, the total weight of oranges they harvested from these trees was exactly the same as the group that got unlimited water. Let that sink in for a second. The same amount of fruit for half the water.
All right, I know what you're thinking. There has to be a catch, right? Okay, so the total weight was the same, but surely the oranges themselves weren't as good. Maybe they were smaller, or less juicy, or just tasted bland? Well, the researchers thought of that too. And what they found was just wow.
The quality didn't just stay the same, it didn't go down, it actually got better. Just look at this data. The oranges that got less water had significantly more vitamin C, and that pulp color index, that's just a scientific way of measuring how deep and rich that orange color is, that number was way higher too. So under a little bit of strategic stress, these trees produced fruit that was more nutritious and more beautiful.
So what does all of this actually mean for the real world? Let's zoom out for a second and think about the future of growing citrus.
This quote from the researchers really just hits the nail on the head. For farmers in those really dry regions, this isn't just a cool science experiment, this could be a total game changer. It means they can save a ton of money on water, which is huge, but it's more than that. They can grow a product that is measurably better, more vitamins, better color. It can make them way more competitive.
And that really leaves us with this one big, powerful question. We started by asking if less could actually be more, and for the orange, the answer seems to be a huge yes. So, in a world that's only getting hotter and drier, could this idea of strategic stress be the key? Not just for oranges, but maybe for all kinds of crops. Could this be how we create a more sustainable, more resilient way to feed ourselves? It's a pretty hopeful thought. Thanks for diving into this with me.